Wakaso Futeji Sangaji. Today, we're going to be exploring the journey from Manmuk to Gurmuk, which is akin to the transformation of a piece of coal into solid gold, or a sinner into a saint. And so in Sikhism, the lineage that we practice, there's two primary paths that emerge before us. This is the way of the Manmuk, the one who lives through ego and self-will, and the way of the Gurmuk, the one who surrenders selflessly to the wisdom of the Guru. And these two paths reflect the fundamental dichotomy in human nature, one that is rooted in desire and self-interest, and the other, which is rooted in humility, devotion, and service. So exploring these differences can illuminate not only our own struggles, but also our own potential for personal transformation. And without awareness, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. And honestly, even with awareness, it can still be very difficult to break those bad habits, those self-sabotage loops, those negative internal talks, and so forth. But through proper effort and divine grace, we can overcome the challenges our egos and our minds constantly love to present us with. But first, we must understand, what is our ego? Many people will simply say it's how we identify ourselves. Sure. And the dictionary might say ego is a person's sense of self, including their thoughts, feelings, self-esteem, and sense of self-importance. It helps people identify their uniqueness, stand up for themselves, and puts plans into actions. And both of those sound about right. But how did it come to be, this ego? How did it manifest itself over lifetimes and lifetimes, and over the entire span of your life right here, right now? And if we really investigate, we really look at this through karma, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. What is that cause that creates the effect of adding layers to our ego? And when we investigate that, it's the realization that we've been making agreements or contracts with ourselves and with everyone around us. These innumerable agreements that you may have forgotten about over time have created various layers of your beingness and how your mind projects and manifests itself in our waking reality. It's the reason why I like orange shirts, or why I chose this ocean background tonight. It's the reason why you're wearing what you're wearing today, or why you like a certain type of food. You agreed within yourself to say that, oh, I like that, and it represents who I am or what I believe myself to be. And it's why some people think anger is justified and a very useful emotion. It's why some people treat others differently to protect themselves or make themselves feel more important, and so forth and so forth. Here's something that's interesting. Did you know that there are innumerable versions of you out there in the world? You're thinking, well, there's only one of me. But that's just not true, because the way people hold the image of who they believe you are in their heads until they get more information and form a more clear picture of who you are. Therefore, everyone you ever meet in your entire life stores a projection of who they think you are within them. Your dad sees you one way. Your lover sees you another way. Your boss at your job sees you another way. Your community sees you perhaps a different way. Your friends see a different version of you, and so forth, the world over. And so the more you identify with these agreements that you've made within yourself, you actually make it stronger. It becomes even that much more difficult to change that aspect of yourself. The more people see you in one way, the more difficult it becomes to be another way. So for instance, if you're always angry, and they'll just be like, oh, yeah, River's that angry person, like he always gets angry at this, that, and the other thing. It actually becomes more difficult for you to shift out of that, because they're sending you energy, expecting you to be a certain way. And that's very strange, but true. So what can we do? Because these energies, these agreements, they actually end up turning themselves into the five thieves. These thieves that steal away the beauty in your life. And so if you constantly associate yourself with anger, lust, greed, and attachment, they start feeding you these thoughts, these ideas, these concepts, and you start believing that you're actually them. So Baisab Ji reminds me, don't give them any of your attention. And what is attention? Attention is your energy. And in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it says, where you place your attention, that is what you will receive. So we need to become aware of how this game works with these agreements and how we can start to shapeshift them. And so one thing we can do for our friends and family is always try to see people in their best light. Give them that opportunity to free themselves, unless they're going to prove you otherwise. Then, of course, you have to believe them for how they're choosing to show up. Unfortunately, we're not even aware of the agreements that we have made over lifetimes and lifetimes of karma that keeps us bonded to various projection deceptions of the mind. And scientists say that 95% of our decisions are driven by our subconscious minds, which means that we're only actually making 5% of decisions consciously. It's akin to a computer. This is the metaphor that we like to say. So for instance, if you're on the computer or you're on your phone and you open up an internet browser and you choose to go to a certain website, that's like your conscious mind. You're actively choosing to do that. But do you really know all the tasks that are going on in the background, behind the scenes, in the task manager, on that operating system? There's innumerable tasks running in the background, making sure that that operating system is moving in a certain direction. Truth be told, no, you absolutely don't. And you may not even know that that exists right now if you aren't technical, but it does. And there are countless programs running behind the scenes. These are the subconscious thoughts that drive the ego of man to burn in the fire of desire. And so the true spiritualist takes up the lofty chore of cleaning their temple, to cleanse, clear, purify the mind until it is diamond on all sides, and they have supreme clarity of the absolute truth. They see through all the veils of illusion. They see through all the layers of their own ego and others. And according to the enlightened, man will become egoless and merge into the divine consciousness to become one with the totality of all. When? As Guruji says, when I no longer exist, only you remain. This is the goal. But before we can get to the end of the journey, let's start at step one, which would be to simply increase our awareness of those behavior patterns, traits, and tendencies that keep us in egoic-driven pursuits. And so the Mamluk's life is marked by a constant pursuit of personal gain, pleasure, and recognition. The root of this tendency lies in wame, or ego, the feeling that one is separate, distinct, and self-sufficient, leading to an attitude of I, me, and mine. The Mamluk's priorities are dictated by desires, attachments, and worldly concerns. The path of the Mamluk is one of competition, comparison, and a quest to fulfill endless cravings. This is important to remember. Competition, comparison, and complaining are the three C's that always keep coming up to me to avoid. And this self-driven individual is likely to experience cycles of frustration, dissatisfaction, and constant anxiety. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji explains in the Japji Sahib that the Mamluk, by his words, lives in falsehood. This indicates that ego-driven words and actions lack integrity and authenticity, leading ultimately to suffering and alienation. The Mamluk is ruled by his senses and instincts, losing sight of the spiritual dimensions of life. Like, imagine yourself for a moment. It's talking about, it ultimately leads to suffering and alienation. The most egoic driven person in the whole wide world, what do they want to do? World domination. So let's just say you just kill everybody and you're standing on a mountain of death. It's just you yourself. You have alienated yourself from everyone and everything in all of life, simply to say that you're sitting on top of that pyramid. And this is the deception of the ego. It's very, very interesting to look at it from like a further back perspective. And so I just wanted to give like three modern examples of behaviors or mindsets often associated with this man-muk mentality so that we can better reflect upon how these patterns may be showing up in our own lives so that we can become aware of ourselves and maybe say, yeah, I'd like to work on that. I'd like to, shift that a little bit. And so these days, everybody's in business in one way or another, whether you run your own company or maybe you're working for somebody else as an employee. What we like to call is corporate exploitation. Perhaps this is an individual who prioritizes personal profit over ethics or the well-being of others. This would embody the man-muk tendency. For example, a corporate executive who maybe exploits their workers, disregards environmental impacts, or cuts corners in product safety just so they can make higher profit margins, and operates from a place of self-centeredness and attachment to material gain, i.e., greed. Such a person might justify their actions by focusing on short-term gains or power while ignoring the harm caused to others and the environment. We can just look at the corporatocracy of the West, and it's very plain to see what a lot of these companies are doing to the environment while pushing for higher and higher profits, right? And so Guruji actually advocates for the exact opposite. He's always advocating for hard and honest work, one of the primary tenets of Sikhi. And so if you notice the mind trying to be clever to get some sort of unfair advantage over others in your workplace or your job, you're going to want to be radically honest with yourself about why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And how can you course correct your behavior? Like, if you get a couple extra $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, like, what's that doing for you? You're not taking it with you in your next life anyways. Like, but you are stacking up mountains of karma for yourself. And so you got to ask yourself why, if you're really walking this path, you're doing what you're doing, those hard whys, because no one else can do this work except you. Only you can make the change, and only you have the ability to make the change. Others that are walking along this path with you, or say even in Sangat, they can guide you along the way, but they'll never be able to walk for you. And nor would they want to, because it's an act of self-empowerment to overcome those challenges for yourself. And so another example would be social media. Social media seems to be all the rage these days. Let's get those followers and those likes. And so this influencer culture is just obsessed with constant validation, such as, let's just say, somebody on social media who chases after the fame, the followers, the likes, primarily to validate themselves, ignoring their impact on others or the values they promote. This can represent man-muk behavior, right? There's nothing wrong inherently with social media, but if this individual, they might focus excessively on outward appearance, lifestyle, and attention, rather than promoting authentic, uplifting, or helpful content, these influencers often project an illusion of happiness and success while remaining constantly concerned about their image and popularity, which is only driven by ego and attachment to worldly validation. And if people were half as happy as they pretend to be on social media, the world would be a much better place. And all you have to do is look outside your window and you can see the state of the world. For we are in Kali Yuga. This is the age of darkness and ignorance. So people are trading their values, their morals, their beliefs, their connection to the divine. They're trading all of that just to promote everything and anything for a little attention or maybe a brand deal or make a little money on the side these days. And if you find yourself sacrificing yourself to pander to the world, to bend your back to the world, watch out. Maya, dancing with Maya is a slippery slope. Maya plays for keeps. She'll put you in a box and keep you locked up. So you don't want to play that game and get entangled with something that is very, very sticky. And so the wise, they beg. The gurus, they beg to stay attached to the lotus feet of the divine. And Bhai Sahib Ji shared with me once, you know, I was curious, like, what is the lotus feet? What does that mean? And so he shared with me that the feet of the divine means the teachings of the divine, the teachings of the gurus, the teaching of your guru. So stay rooted in those teachings that lead you towards the path of emancipation and free yourself to be yourself. And another example, modern example, here in the West, in America specifically, we just wrapped up an election year. So we have to talk about political figures driven by power. And these are those people who serve primarily to gain that power, that control, and influence over others, rather than to genuinely help and uplift the community. This would reflect a Manmuk trait, right? They may frequently change their stances to gain votes, use divisive language, or manipulate situations to retain said influence, disregarding the greater good of the all. And so when personal ambitions eclipse genuine service and decisions are made based on ego, this pursuit of authority often leads to actions that disregard compassion and fairness, resulting in societal harm. And in each of these examples, Manmuk is ruled by ego, personal gain, and attachment to worldly recognition, rather than by humility, integrity, and selfless service to others. However, this concept doesn't have to be relegated to politics only. Those behavior patterns could be associated with any position that infers power and control. This could even be within your own small group of friends, your family, your business, in your relationship with your partner, or even in a sangha such as this one. And so you want to notice when you have tendencies to want to have things done your way. Not that that's a bad thing, but if you're not willing to compromise and it has to be only your way, and the fact that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it done the way that you want, that would be a red flag. So that would be a great time to reflect upon your true intentions. And again, why? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you need to have so much control of the situation? What are you so afraid of that if you let go, what is it that you can't trust? Why is there a lack of faith in the perfection of the moment? These are all things that, could come up for you to say, hey, maybe I can let go of the hands off the steering wheel for a moment. And in contrast to this type of behavior, the Gurmukh is someone who lives in harmony with divine wisdom. Rather than allowing personal desires to dictate their path, the Gurmukh surrenders to the will of the divine, the Hukam, and follows the teachings of the Guru. This surrender is not about being weak or showing weakness. It's actually just the opposite. It's an act of strength, a true acceptance that fulfillment comes from aligning one's actions with a higher purpose. The Gurmukh embodies compassion, selflessness, and devotion, often placing others whom are less fortunate's needs before their own as an act of service. The Gurmukh recognizes the divinity in all beings and sees themselves as a servant to this universal oneness. Rather than competing or comparing, the Gurmukh lives in seva, selfless service, and simran, the remembrance of the divine. In this state, the Gurmukh's heart is full, their mind is clear, and their spirit is free from the burden of ego. And according to the fifth guru, the fifth master guru, Arjan Dev Ji, in Sukhmani Sahib, he states, with every pore, the Gurmukh meditates on God. And this signifies that the Gurmukh's entire being resonates with that divine love, the same divinity of the divine itself. And Bhai Sahib Ji would often tell me that you must chant the name of the divine until every hair follicle reverberates in that frequency. This is the level of devotion that one gets to aspire to. Right? And of course, just as there are many modern examples of Manmukh behavior, I also wanted to take a closer look at what it means to be a Gurmukh in today's society. Not that the titles of the positions that I'm going to talk about actually matter, but it's more about the integrity of the character within each of these examples that should be highlighted, that you should be looking at. It's really more about the essence of the teachings being embodied through action in modern day society. And so our first example could be a social worker who dedicates their life to serving vulnerable populations, such as homeless individuals, victims of abuse, or marginalized groups. This could exemplify the spirit of a Gurmukh. Instead of seeking personal gain or recognition for their actions, this individual would work tirelessly, often behind the scenes, to uplift others, improve their lives, and address inequalities. Through their compassionate actions, they would embody this humility, this selflessness, and service without expecting any personal reward or fame. Not even like a pat on the back, not posting photos up on the internet and, counting how many likes you got, not hoping you get extra, money or access to some sort of perk on the side. No, literally just offering themselves without any expectation in return. It's giving to live, right? So how in your life can we do this? Perhaps you have a friend, family member, or someone in your Sangha that is going through a difficult time. Even just lending an ear, giving them words of encouragement or helping support them during these trying times is enough to help someone turn their frown upside down, to be that spark that helps get their life to turn around. Because honestly, this world is difficult enough. Like, there's wars going on, the economies are upside down, a lot of people are struggling. It's not an easy time for humanity as a whole right now. And, we have this opportunity to make it as easy and beautiful for each other as possible. But it really takes all of us to work together to make that happen. If one person deviates, the whole thing goes sideways. So be that pillar in your community, be that pillar in your family, to stand as a beacon of truth, a beacon of love, and just radiate that out. And watch what happens. People start asking you like, hey, what are you doing? why are you so at peace? And you have that effect, that rubbing off effect on them. So another example would be, let's say somebody's an environmental activist who dedicates themselves to protecting and preserving the environment for future generations. This would also represent like a Gurmukh value. This person helps raise awareness, advocates for sustainable practices, and often makes personal sacrifices, such as reducing their own, carbon footprint, so to speak, to live according to their values. They serve as a steward for nature, not out of ego or self-interest, but out of reverence for the Creator and its creation, understanding that our actions impact all beings. Their dedication to this cause reflects surrender to a higher purpose, working for the greater good beyond mere personal ego-driven desires. And it doesn't just have to be the environment. There are innumerable causes that require extra attention on Earth that could benefit the greater good of all. You don't even have to aim for the global scale. You could just start right there in your own community or in your own family. It's the concept that is the tenet of Sikhi life, which is service to humanity. Maybe you can go and clean up a local park, help educate underprivileged children, or raise awareness for an important topic in your area where you live. Whatever it is, what they're asking us is to find something that you enjoy or are passionate about that benefits the whole rather than just you. In this way, it won't be chore. It won't be work. You don't have to wake up and be like, oh, I have to do this. No, it will be a divine expression of the spirit of who you truly are. It will be a joy for you to do. And in this way, you'll be embodying the true spirit of Seva. And our last example would be a community leader or spiritual mentor who brings people together to foster harmony, understanding, and support within a diverse group. This would mirror the path of a Gurmukh. They lead by example, treating everyone with respect and compassion, often going out of their way to mediate conflicts or help individuals heal. Their actions promote oneness and unity, guided by principles rather than personal gains or agendas. By dedicating their life to bringing people closer to one another, closer to the divine, this leader serves as a model of humility and unconditional love, uplifting the collective spirit. And each of these individuals live with humility, selfless purpose, and compassion. This reflects the Gurmukh way, by acting for the benefit of others rather than for themselves. And through their lives, they demonstrate that true fulfillment arises from serving a higher purpose and uplifting others, embodying the teachings of the Guru. And we have the perfect examples, right, from the modern day. But you can also look to the lives that the Gurus lived themselves. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji went on many udasis, and he spent over 24 years traveling all over the world to do exactly this. But you don't need to be a guru or a saint to do this with your own friends, your family, or at your workplace. What it does require is it requires commitment to the path, a commitment to a growth mindset, a commitment to personal self-development, a commitment to transformation. It requires the ability to listen to the will of the divine, listen to others, listen to those voices inside of your head that are trying to pull you off the path and make the right decision. And it requires a whole lot of patience because not everyone's on the same path. In fact, most people you'll find are maybe trying to pull you off the path. And so this requires a lot of compassion and a lot of patience. And while it's not easy, it is a skill, a very important skill that requires lifelong practice to hone and perfect. And by studying the scriptures of the holy, immersing ourselves in that same company of the holy, and following the teachings and practice as best we can actually start to begin to make progress on becoming a Gurmukh ourselves. And so now we'll talk a little bit about that transformation. The journey from Manmukh to Gurmukh, as we stated before, is not an easy one. Bhai Sahib Ji himself always tells me this path is not for everyone, but it is the essence of spiritual growth. For the Manmukh to become a Gurmukh, a profound inner transformation must take place. The ego must be acknowledged, understood, and then gradually dissolved through humility, meditation, and selfless service. The guru, or the teachers in our lives, become the compass, guiding the seeker from the wilderness of desire to the sanctuary of contentment. And Guruji says, except for the divine, the Gurmukh knows no other. The Manmukh foolishly loses himself in poison. This teaching reminds us that clinging to the ego is like consuming poison. It only brings about suffering and separation. But by surrendering to the divine, we open ourselves up to wisdom, grace, and spiritual liberation. And so this requires that commitment. But behind the commitment is our intention. Our intention to gradually root ourselves in self-awareness, to set that intention to increase our love and our devotion, to set that intention to be of service without asking for anything in return. And so understand that no matter how sinful you have been or currently are, like we all are, the divine always offers this grace and mercy to those who are earnest in their heart, that want to make this transformation. Bhai Sahib Ji always tells me, like, if you take one step towards the divine will take 1,000 steps towards you. He'll run to you. He'll set up the people, places, and things, those perfect synchronicities to help you along your way, if you're earnest in your heart. And so even if you have committed the most terrible atrocities, the worst things that man could do, the worst sins, these practices that we're going to talk about are so powerful that they can turn the worst of sinners into a saint. And they are the authentic practices and exact path that the enlightened gurus, they themselves have walked. Many of us here in the Sanghat may know them, but how many of you are actually performing it as a daily practice or sadhana? So just offer this as a reminder. But if you're not aware, then this is the path. So developing a daily practice of meditation or Simran, remembrance of the divine, it's foundational for quieting the ego and centering the mind on higher consciousness. Starting each day with meditation or reciting Nam, the name of the divine, in whichever way you connect to the divine, for us it's Waheguru, can help break attachment to worldly desires and soothe the mind, creating space to connect with one's higher self. This daily practice brings humility and deepens the awareness of the divine presence in all things, gradually shifting one's focus from I to you. What does that look like? Let's go back to that computer metaphor, right? If we are having thoughts, and just imagine them as lines of code in your mind running, and those lines of code are giving you thoughts which perpetuate the actions in your life, which perpetuate your habits, which perpetuates your lifestyle, which perpetuates the destiny and the fate that you shall receive in this life. Now, all those lines of code could be absolutely corrupt with the 5 thieves, but you are given the name of the divine from the Guruji. So if we can overwrite those lines of code with Waheguru, 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 you're changing a thought in a lower frequency to the absolute highest thought one could have. You're connecting with the truth. And so we have the opportunity to, yes, sit still and find space to meditate, but we also have the opportunity to keep the name of the divine with us throughout the day. And, that is our aspiration to aspire to, that we would never forget the name of the divine, that we would stay connected to the name of the divine. And in that way, stay in that frequency that transcends the ways of Maya, that are always going to be present. They're always going to be flowing right below you. But the master is he who transcendently levitates above that, staying connected to the divine, staying connected to that Nam. And so for those of you who practice daily, that's great. Keep up the good work. But for those who may have an inconsistent practice or haven't even really started yet, this is a reminder that it takes the mind about 90 days until a habit sticks. So whatever you have to do to practice for 90 days straight, just go for it. Get a meditation buddy, write sticky notes to yourself, set alarms, pray to the divine, put a reminder on your bathroom mirror, whatever you have to do. If you can get to 90 days, things scientifically start to get easier. But if you quit before then, you'll constantly be in this like stop, go, sputtering kind of practice that never really gets you anywhere. And your mind will never see the true results of why the gurus advocate for this meditation so strongly. And therefore you'll think, oh, it just doesn't work, so I'm not going to do it. But if you can do that 90 days and you start seeing that transformation, now your mind has the evidence and says, oh, it's actually working, and it's going to propel you to go even deeper. So for instance, you could just start by chanting the name of the divine for 5 to 10 minutes each morning and focusing, on that name in whichever way you connect, whether it's Buddha, Yeshua, Krishna, Waheguru, etc., as a form of remembrance. And over time, you can slowly increase the duration and consistency. And then the next level would be, how can you take this throughout your day? How can you counteract those impulsive, ego-driven reactions, those emotions that are rising up to try to get you to push you to do something, this, that, or the other thing? For example, I wrote a short poem about this to highlight this process, right? So, a lustful gaze, Waheguru. Blood-boiling anger, Waheguru. Pissing yourself in a pool of fear, Waheguru. Self-sabotage loops, Waheguru. Self-limiting belief systems, Waheguru. Negative behavioral patterns, Waheguru. Generational trauma, Waheguru. Argumentative mindsets, Waheguru. Demeaning bullies, Waheguru. Jealous haters, Waheguru. Shady business people, Waheguru. Narcissistic pathological liars, Waheguru. Baby mama drama, Waheguru. Crazy crackheads in the street, Waheguru. Thank you, Waheguru, for all you do and all you undo. Waheguru. So, in showing that, anything could be rising up in your mind in that moment. If you can remember to chant the name of the divine, you literally disconnect yourself from that thought and you connect to a sanctuary of peace. You connect yourself to eternal bliss, and you can transcend the moment and you can stay present there, so that you no longer have to react, but you get to respond. It's your ability to respond in what is the best possible scenario for all beings in that moment. So find the time to align the mind to the divine and chant yourself some Waheguru or any other name of the divine, and it will help you undo the falsehood of what you perceive, the eye perceives as experiencing, and return to focus on the true you. So 2 other practices would be to engage in seva, or selfless service. And this is a direct way to diminish the ego and develop a spirit of humility and compassion. By helping others with no expectation of reward or acknowledgement, one cultivates a mindset of giving rather than taking. All we have to do is look at the nature of reality, and we can see the divine design, that everything lives in perfect symbiotic harmony, giving to each other in this beautiful ecosystem. It's only when man comes in with ego that we disturb the divine's perfect design. And you can see the result of that in our environments, in how we're treating animals, and even how we treat other humans. So by cultivating that sense of giving, of serving in a local community, volunteering at a food bank, supporting others in need, this can foster empathy and reinforce the interconnectedness of life, that we can begin to see that connection between all beings, grounding us in the values of a true Gurmukh. So lastly, we're asked that to spend time in the Sangha, the company of spiritually oriented people, but also the company of the holy, that true Sangha, that Sad Sangha. This can profoundly influence one's spiritual growth. Being around others who are committed to the path of humility and service encourages accountability and allows for us to have this shared learning experience. Regularly reflecting on one's thoughts and actions through introspection or journaling can reveal our own ego-driven tendencies. And that's why we're talking about modern examples. So you can see, am I doing that? Can I find where I'm become more aware of myself? And this can open the way for growth towards the qualities of embodying what it means to be a Gurmukh. And so a couple examples of that is you could join a local spiritual group, participate in kirtan or devotional singing. You could attend, a temple service or gurdwara. You can, where you can engage with and learn from others on a similar path. And after each gathering, just spend some time reflecting. And this is a great thing to do at the end of your day. Reflect on the insights gained or habits observed, and identify areas where you can strive for greater qualities of what it means to be a Gurmukh. How can I be more humble? How can I be more selfless? How can I be more compassionate? What did I do? Did I ruffle somebody's feathers? Did I put somebody down? Did I take something, sneakily? Did I try to manipulate somebody? Like, really analyze your actions throughout the day and why. And this contemplative reflection is key, especially in Sangha, because a lot of times people will be in Sangha, but not be focused or not show up with the proper intention. Are you just going for the food? Are you going to just hang out with, community and friends? Are you trying to find your next boyfriend or girlfriend? Is it just the good times? Or are you going to Sangha to dissolve your ego and connect to the divine? And there's nothing wrong with the other things either, but just remember your why. Sometimes things look good on the surface, but they may actually be leading us away from the true path. So all in all, these practices can help cultivate the virtues of a Gurmukh by dissolving the ego and aligning one's life with this divine guidance, gradually transforming the mind and the heart to live in harmony with a higher purpose. And so to tread this path moving forward, one must cultivate bhakti, this devotion, this ability to surrender and simran the remembrance of God. Through these practices, we will make that transformation. The Gurmukh's path reminds us that life's true purpose is not the accumulation of wealth, power, or recognition, but the dissolution of ego and the realization of oneness with all. And in the end of it all, saints and sinners are not two separate beings. It's not two different parties. They're actually two sides of our own nature. They both live within us. We have that potential to have ego-driven choices, but we also have the possibility to be completely selfless. It's a fork in the road. It's a path that we must choose to walk. And so the Guru's teachings guide us to choose the latter, to recognize our divine essence, to live in harmony with the divine's will. But this journey is a continuous one. It requires vigilance, patience, and a deep, deep love for the divine. And I'm often reminded that on this path, you don't actually gain anything on the path of spirituality. You only lose. You lose your anger, you lose your greed, you lose your lust, you lose your attachment, you lose your ego, and you lose the world. But in losing the world, you gain the divine. And Bhai Sahib Ji tells me that when that happens, you're going to be in the same world, as before. Everything's the same. Your friends, your family, there, everything's still there. But your experience of it vastly changes. Your perspective of it vastly changes. And so the opportunity to love in each and every moment will begin to present itself to you, and your true nature becomes clear. And so may we all have the strength and guidance to leave behind the shadows of the manmuk's tendencies and embrace the light of being a gurmukh. May we become instruments of compassion, agents of unity, and humble servants in the divine plan. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.